There's joy for everyone who receives a letter when the bags from home are opened. But think of the poor fellow who is left out. If you know anyone over there, write him a letter of cheer with the accent on the cheer. Give him the details of what is going on in the hometown, especially the good news. Do not send a gloomy letter. That's not only unpatriotic, it's also aiding the enemy. If you're too blue to write a cheerful letter, don't write at all. Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag, not in the mail bag. And in your letters, smile, smile, smile. If you do not think that they need a smile, look at the cheerless desolation of no man's land, which they are facing day in and day out, in which they are exploring night in and night out. A region dead and in every sense above ground, but full of life below ground, as we shall see later. We enter a trench which one of our officers is inspecting and safely traverse it out of sight of the ever-watchful Boche with his trench periscope peeping over the edge of a trench a few hundred yards away. Through these zigzag trenches, the men pass in comparative safety during the daytime, and only occasionally being disturbed by a whistling shell or a burst of shrapnel. The trenches, however, are not continuous, but there are many gaps which can be crossed safely only at night. All such gaps are well covered by carefully placed machine guns. In the uncanny hours of night, under the cover of darkness, patrols from both sides sneak out into no man's land and try to find out what the other side is doing and planning. Should two such parties meet, they would signal for help, and soon the whole of no man's land would be lighted up bright as day by rockets, and for a few minutes, numerous machine guns would spit forth their streams of bullets, and then quiet would reign. For these parties are not out to fight unless they have to. Their mission is to get home with the information they have acquired. During the daytime, our sharpshooters are ever watchful to get a shot at some unwary Hun who shows his head above his trench. You will note the telephone wires running along the edge of the trench, seen just below the man's elbow. These are just two of the strands of the trench nervous system. That through peek holes in the sandbags, constant watch is kept for any movement on the part of the enemy, so that an attack or raid can be forestalled. Trench travel is not always a simple matter, for sometimes the rains cause the sides to cave in and the wire and faggot revetments give way so as to completely block the passage. Worse yet is the effect of the shells from the big guns constantly thundering far behind the German lines, which tear great craters in the ground, scattering the rocks and debris in all directions. Everywhere, sandbags are used to make an effective barricade and increase the depth of the trench. In fair weather, work in the trenches is not as bad as a soldier's life goes, but all the Americans would prefer to fight in the open. In rainy weather, however, the trenches in most places are transformed into veritable sloughs of despond, and the boardwalks, called duck walks by the English, are needed to keep the men from being mired. In the sides of the trenches are the ordinary dugouts for the soldiers, some of them as much as 20 or 30 feet below the surface of the ground. Here they can eat and sleep in peace while the cannons roar all about them. But while some sleep, others are on guard, and the sharpshooter here in the doorway of his dugout is fully equipped and ready for any emergency. There is a ban on mascots, but that does not prove that there are none of them with our army in France. Love will find a way, and a number of real live mascots hold their positions unmolested to bring luck to their camp or a trench. Such luck, reinforced by the skill and bravery of our men, brought this German prisoner, the first one captured by our troops, into our ranks. Probably it was a lucky day for the captive as well as the captors. For despite the unspeakable atrocities committed by the Huns on prisoners of war whom they have taken, we treat such men with humanitarian consideration. In view of the pictures we have been seeing, you will doubtless be interested to meet one of those who is responsible for many of these pictures. These are the only men we will allow to shoot into our ranks with impunity. However, securing pictures for our information is only an incident in the most important aids to the eyes of the Army. With it, the region back of the enemy trenches is photographed from airplanes, and the views obtained are so distinct that gunners, gun nests, ammunition dumps, movements of troops, and thousands of other points of military value can be seen at a glance. These photographic records are sent by motorcycle or messenger to headquarters, and with them the general map of the region, the general activities of the enemy, and the disposition of his troops can be accurately located. It is of great help to the engineers, one of whom is seen here, in preparing their maps and laying their plans. Having had a short furlough with the photographer, we return to the trenches just in time to be caught in a gas attack. Gas shells have been dropped, and the man with the auto horn is sounding the doleful alarm which will be relayed down the line of the trenches. Then, from the dugouts along the lines, these ghastly figures emerge, which you might fall down and worship without breaking the commandments, for they are nothing like in the heavens above or on the earth beneath or the waters under the earth. Fortunately, all our men are equipped with masks, which are absolute protection against these gas fumes. The barbarous Hun introduced the use of gas against all the mandates of civilized warfare. We are now not only prepared to protect ourselves against his attack, but also to give him a dose of his own medicine, probably an overdose. There is not time to more than mention our medical corps, the efforts of whose members in all sections of the front have been of the most efficient and heroic character. This station near the front line trenches is typical of the advanced positions in which they work. Here the wounded can be sheltered and receive temporary treatment in the midst of bursting shells until, under the cover of night, ambulances can carry them safely to the fully equipped hospitals well outside of the danger zone. A whole lecture or more could be devoted to the work of this branch of service. But as yet, we have sent to the front no legion of death, such as the regiment of women raised by the Russians early in the war. But we have a company of fair telephone operators who have been appointed to responsible, though not dangerous, positions in France. Their photograph was taken before they left for the Foreign Service, and it is fitting that we pay them our respects. So here's to our girls over there. We are at a disadvantage in the war because of our distance from the conflict and the difficulty of our leaders having the personal knowledge of the work and needs of our army and our allies in the field. However, the sea and the German submarine have not prevented our Secretary of War from crossing to the other side and obtaining first-hand information as to what we are doing and the condition of our army and its needs. Secretary Baker received a royal welcome, as was fitting, by the people as well as officials wherever he went. Here we see him as he came into the street in Paris, surrounded by a cheering crowd. It was with undisguised pride that he, with General Pershing, reviewed some of our troops in France. For there are no finer-looking soldiers or better figures to be found than those we have sent to France and those who are to follow. Secretary Baker reported their morale to be of the best and their physical condition excellent. We can rest assured that they will uphold the honor of our country through thick and thin until Prussian autocracy is absolutely crushed. To accomplish this end, we have entrusted the direction of our military activities to Secretary Baker and General Pershing, both men in whom we may place great confidence. In General Pershing, we have a broad-minded, energetic, typical American of sound judgment and quick action, who is fully measuring up to the high responsibilities laid upon him. Artillery is playing a very great part in modern warfare. Never before has it been used so extensively. Guns of all caliber are used, from the great 16-inch guns on railway carriages down to the one-pounders and machine guns. The British, in preparing for an offensive operation, placed their artillery so thick that the gun mounts stand wheel to wheel. In a recent battle on a front of 10 miles that lasted 6 days, 25 million shells of the 75mm caliber alone were used. Artillery is also one of the most expensive branches of warfare. The U.S. especially has had to even build plants for the manufacture of guns and ammunition. For the manufacture of these things, over $6 billion have already been appropriated, and much more will be needed. A single 16-inch gun and its railway mount costs $525,000, and each shell cost $1,000. Tanks cost $60,000 apiece. The baby cannon, the 37mm gun, cost $1,500 apiece. Already, over 110,000 machine guns have been turned out, entailing an enormous outlay in money. On the other hand, artillery is the best life insurance that we can buy for our soldiers over there. It is the surest guarantee of victory. We can, with our dollars, lay down a barrage that will save countless American lives as our men go forward against the enemy. As they're going over the top these days, exhibiting such fighting qualities that have brought to them the admiration of all the world, our great commander is today calling on us in the second line of defense to bring up the support that is necessary for those in the front line. The boys out there are giving their lives. We are only asked to give our money. And what a paltry contribution to make. How inconsiderable in comparison with theirs. Some of the boys won't come back at all. Some will come back with empty sleeves, with limbs gone, eyes out, and worse still, with a vacant stare where intelligence formerly shone, crazed by the hell of battle. The government can't replace these things. They're gone forever. All we are asked to do is to lend, not to give. To lend what? Our arms, legs, eyes, lives? No! Just dollars, and to lend them in the safest possible way. When you buy a Liberty bond, you're making the safest investment in the world. Individuals sometimes fail to pay back what they borrow. Banks fail. Governments never fail unless they are disrupted by the heel of the conqueror. And in that case, your money is lost in whatever form you have it. Currency is valueless. Lands are valueless. As long as these are good, the government bonds are the best security in the world. The campaign is on today. Don't fail to do your duty. The finger of duty is pointing at every man, woman, and child in this house tonight, saying, do your duty by the boys over there. The man or woman who can buy a bond and won't is a slacker of the meanest sort. He's not worthy of the name American. Then let us come up like American men and women, like the fathers and brothers, mothers and sisters of our American soldiers, and say to the boys over there, lay on, boys, we're backing you up. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Questions, comments, observations, etc.? I'm a school teacher. I sort of like to go through things. What did